Fire Radio.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the National Fire Radio podcast. This week, the week of April 24th. This is FDIC week. I know so many don't ever make it out to the show, but if you do, come find us. We're in booth 13073 in the main hallway. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to chat with you. We're going to be podcasting from the booth in conjunction with the 2448 podcast from High Vis Lighting. We are going to have such a great time. We got a project in the works with Rev Group. We got a project in the work with Mercedes Textiles and a few other manufacturers as well. This is going to be a banner week for us at National Fire Radio, and we are fired up. Anyway, welcome back to the podcast. And this week during FDIC, we're going to bring you content live from the show, as well as our scheduled programming. So we're not going to miss a beat this week. While we're working the floor in Indianapolis, we want you to still enjoy the podcast. Give it a listen. Thanks for the support, and we appreciate everything that you've done. Like, share, subscribe to the audio channel that you listen to, and do me a favor, tell somebody else about the podcast, because, man, without your help and support, we're not able to grow, and you guys have pushed us to get better, be better, and we appreciate that support. So I'm going to shut up and get off to FDIC. This is the week of April 24th. Enjoy the podcast this week, and we appreciate your support. We'll check you later. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. This episode's brought to you by Teledyne FLIR. Teledyne FLIR is the creator of thermal imaging in the fire service. This year, 2023, is the 10th anniversary of the release of their K-Series thermal imaging cameras. Back in 2013, the K-Series was launched to specifically target firefighters and making their job more effective and efficient by using thermal imaging technology. 10 years later, they're bringing so much more to the table with a multitude of cameras that help you on the situational or tactical decision making. They make a camera for every position on the fire ground. Check out Teledyne FLIR. They bring so much to the table in the world of thermal imaging. And at FDIC this year, 2023, you can find them in booth 443 with Teledyne Gas and Flame, as well as you can find them in their partners booths, 1201 with Team, 3457 with Darley, and of course you can find them at the Whitmer Fire Store, 110 and 111. Look for Teledyne FLIR this year at FDIC 2023. Ask them to show you the product and talk about thermal imaging, because it is the technology that pushes the firefighters forward. Anyway, Teledyne FLIR, a great sponsor and a part of the National Fire Radio platform. This episode's brought to you by the 2448 podcast. If you're a first responder with an entrepreneurial streak, check out the 2448 podcast. Hosted by Sam Massa, who built lighting company High Vis LEDs. During his off time, he serves as a volunteer firefighter and professional EMT. Each week, we tell the stories of different first responder-owned businesses, from small startups to food trucks, to companies like National Fire Radio and Fire Department Coffee. Available anywhere you listen to podcasts. Go to the2448.com for more information. That's www.the2448.com for more information about this killer podcast. And if you're coming to FDIC this year, join us in booth 13073, right by the entrance in the main hallway, where National Fire Radio, yes, us, in conjunction with the 2448 podcast, will be teamed up for live shows throughout the duration of FDIC. It's going to be a killer week out in Indy. Join us at booth 13073, right in the main hallway, where you come right into the convention center. We're going to be right there live broadcasting throughout the week. Come see us. Guys, thanks for checking it out. Check out the 2448 podcast. And now, without further ado, the daily episode. Hey, everyone. Jeremy, National Fire Radio. Today's a little bit different than the obvious podcast that I do regularly, where I sit behind a soundboard. Nobody gets to see who I am. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? I play behind the curtain. Absolutely. But since everybody can see who I'm talking to today, Keston Weimer.
Yes, sir.
Brother, thank you, man. Shake your hand.
Thank you for having me on.
This
really
is
appreciate
cool.
it.
So, Tony Angelosi, right, who put us together. This is, so let's back up a little bit, right? So
Sure.
This is a fun conversation.
Absolutely.
So, Delaware County Technical High School, that's where we are today. And if you're watching the video, we're sitting in their apparatus bay classroom if you will.
For sure.
This is a 2-year technical high school for basically junior and seniors in high school.
Correct.
Who go to regular classes at another school during the day or half a day. They come here the other half of the day to learn about fire, EMS, and police because potentially they're looking at a career in pursuing in one of those fields.
Yep, 100%.
Very cool. Because I know there's programs like this all over the country. Where I am, though, we don't have this in our technical high schools.
Okay.
We have plumbing, welding, heating, and air conditioning.
This definitely isn't a traditional program.
Which is really interesting to me because where are the roots? You know where the roots, because you've been with the program for 5 years now, right? Program was here before you got here.
Correct, for quite a while.
So break it down for me, man. Do you know where the roots come from?
Yeah, so a lot of this type of program was born as a response to September 11th.
Oh, wow.
Years ago. So, excuse me, most of these programs, I would say, are over 20 years old. Some newer, but ours was created 2003, and just kind of grew from there. But it was a response by the state and the Department of Homeland Security to get more people interested in these careers.
Interesting.
And it's morphed over the years. Obviously, now we're in a very post 9/11 generation. But I think that the program is taking on more of a role now of filling the gaps that exist in public safety as far as recruitment goes, people not getting into the business like they used to.
Yeah, I think you and I were talking before we hit the record button, and one of the conversations we had, which I thought was really interesting, is the program, you can max out at 50 students for each total, right?
Correct, 25 in the morning and 25 in an afternoon session.
So, and with that, you said you often don't max out at that number.
Correct, we usually do I would say about 40 a year.
So what's really interesting to me, though, and you made a good point of saying that, it's kind of representative of the emergency services
100%.
today, especially in the volunteer realm, right? Yep. I mean, I know, listen, career departments are having a hard time hiring, too. There's no doubt, right?
Yeah.
But really in the volunteer service, and a lot of the kids that are in your program probably volunteer in their home departments.
Almost every one of them.
Yep. Yeah. And so what's interesting then is it's representative of what we're dealing with today in the fire service.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and you see it now, you get, the nice part is that we are a good, like dipping your foot in the water kind of deal for some students where maybe they're not sure if they want to join, not sure what they want to do yet, but this gives them some exposure that it's relatively low risk for them. It's not like you're, 18 or 19 years old taking a job that you might not like. You can kind of get that opportunity in high school and get exposed to it. Every student that's came to me that wasn't a member from somewhere else usually winds up one, and they usually catch the bug pretty quick.
And that's kind of the intent of the program.
Oh, one of the big ones. Yeah, for sure. I mean, our primary mission is to deliver, a comprehensive public safety education to them. So they can get a number of certifications through here. They can get their the first 3 out of 4 modules of the Pennsylvania State Fire 1 curriculum.
Right.
They can get their EMT certification, hazardous materials, and a bunch of other smaller ones, CPR, AED, things like that. So that's kind of goal number 1. But goal number 2 is to get them, hopefully, a decent career.
Yeah.
And goal number 3, I would say, is to be able to help serve the community as a pipeline for those type of students. So,
well, I love that, right?
Candidates,
because, I think of what's happening here. So much of it is not just the emergency service aspect. You're giving them the ability to learn the trade.
For sure,
right? But you're also teaching a lot of other valuable skills from 16 to 18 years old. These kids are coming in here, and you're teaching. It's not a formal classroom.
Right? Agreed.
So
Agreed.
there
are
times,
I love it that way.
There are times when it is.
Sure.
But for the most part, these kids are working together. You give them tasks, and you tell them to go get it done. Yep. We're sitting in an apparatus bay. We got this beautiful Han behind us, right? I love it.
Pride and joy.
Yeah. And with that, though, we're sitting here looking at it, and you have equipment from all over. We're going to talk about all that.
Sure.
But off the camera, you have gear racks set up where each kid has their own set of turnout gear where they can take ownership and pride in their position here. You have 4 different cabinets, right? Like
for the 3 EMS cabinets, yep.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
When I walked in and met you for the first time today, I walked in and I was like, man, this looks like a firehouse. And you're like, well, that's the intent.
That's the feel
and I'm like, well, I kind of absolutely understand that, right? But you also then, like in the emergency services, even in the volunteer service, I talk a lot how age doesn't matter. Whether you're 16, 20, or 85 years old, the volunteer fire service doesn't really look at age.
Yeah.
Right? We expect an 18-year-old volunteer firefighter to do the same job as a 45-year-old volunteer firefighter, especially when it comes to interior firefighting and things like that.
Basic skills.
Right? Yeah, basic skills. So you kind of have that mantra here then, too, in
a
way.
100%.
You treat them as equals, if you will. I mean, you are their instructor, but there's certainly a level of respect and trust.
There has to be. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, it's no lie today, how technology is ingrained in every piece of, especially, younger kids' lives nowadays, but being able to come here and work with people in a team sport like firefighting.
Yeah.
Every day definitely I think helps build the important social skills that they're going to need, and that ability to have a back and forth with somebody, have, basic conversations and stuff like that, which unfortunately is lost on some kids. But I think in this type of environment, this school, where, even those that might be a little bit more in a shell than others are forced to kind of work with other people, and usually, helps breed great friendships. I think most of these people stay friends even after they graduate.
And what
awesome.
I love too is, like, I had a chance to speak for a few minutes in front of the class
Oh,
today,
yeah.
just to say hello and so on, and thank them for, allowing me in their firehouse, if you will. But what was really cool looking around that room was the diversity within that room.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's been great too. I mean, yeah, you met our afternoon class, but our morning class is half women. It's 50%. So cool. That's been a great deal. Yeah, and that's very representative though of Delaware County. We are an extremely diverse county here. You go from very blue collar, middle class, lower middle class communities all the way up to upper, and everything in between that. And the nice part is we service every school in the county. So we get kids from all over the area, which is nice too, because you get to meet people that didn't grow up where you grew up, that aren't necessarily like you. Definitely helps you become a more cultured and I'd say well-rounded individual.
So, which is really cool. And it should be said that we're like literally on the outskirts of Philadelphia.
Absolutely. The airport's 5 minutes from here.
Delaware County is right to the south of Philadelphia, I believe, where we are. Okay. So it's pretty diverse. And the class represents that, which I think in the fire service is super important, right?
Yeah.
I even think about my own kids, like their upbringing versus my upbringing. Diversity is just so much more inclusive now.
Yeah,
than
for sure.
what it was when I was a kid growing up.
For
like
sure.
we didn't have women in our Fire 1 class. We didn't have, I wasn't surrounded by a lot of different ethnicities or race,
Well, yeah, my favorite part about that is the different ideas and the different ways of looking at things that each one of those people brings to the table. You know what I mean? Yeah, you get 5 different people like me, they're going to give you the same response to something. That might not always be the best way to tackle a problem, you know what I mean? So that also makes for much better discussion in the classroom too, which helps with the education. Nobody wants to sit there and listen to the instructor talk for hours on end. When you can have a discussion and engage with the class and have them bounce ideas off of each other and stuff like that, it makes for a much better learning environment.
It really is a great environment when you have people from different points of view, different parts of their life has influenced them differently, and to put that all together, and it's very representative of what the emergency services is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
because, you're serving different communities, and to be able to be open-minded and to be able to have a conversation instead of sticking to one point of view, you have an environment here where people are going to sit back and kind of listen a little bit more and understand the diversity that comes into the conversation.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It's powerful.
And I think it's hugely beneficial too, especially when they get out in their adult lives and get out into the post-high school real world, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does this come from, right, for you? Because, like, here's the deal, right? Volunteer fireman young, became a career fireman.
Yep.
And then you had an opportunity to come back to this program.
Yeah.
And
I'd love to talk about that.
So where does this come from?
Sure. Well, so, I mean, I remember the first day I joined the volunteer fire service, I remember I was on a trip to my dad, like to the pharmacy, I think, to pick up cold medicine. And I remember we passed our local firehouse and I said, mind if we stop in there? I was definitely part of that post 9/11 generation, saw what those guys did and everything like that, and very much wanted to help serve my community. So I stopped into the firehouse. We signed an application, and the rest is kind of history.
Was it like 16, like a
14 years old?
14.
Yeah, young. And then I found out through my homeschool that there was a program like this available, where you could get, basically the way I looked at it is, oh my gosh, I could get out of school for half the day to go play with fire trucks and stuff like
100%.
that. Sign me up, no problem. And then I got into it, and I had an excellent instructor that believed in me and definitely helped shape me into the person that I am today. And I went out, I got my EMT certification. You couldn't get the fire certs back then. That's since changed. But I got my EMT certification and went out working right away, continued on, became a paramedic, and went and tested for various career departments until I found one I liked. Started working there, and then lo and behold, my wife's a teacher, and she actually, she was looking for teaching jobs and said, is that the school you went to that's hiring? And I said, yeah, it is. And I toyed around with the idea. I worked very hard to get a job as a career firefighter, but I realized that this program we could grow this program into something that could really help the students and help the community quite a bit. So I hesitantly took the job. I applied, hesitantly took the job, and since then it's been one of the better decisions that I've made. I've definitely it's not the same fulfillment as going to a fire. I don't think anything ever really touches that kind of thing. However, it's definitely a different way to feel fulfilled when you see these guys that go out and get careers in the business, and get good jobs, help guide them sometimes through some pretty challenging things in their lives.
I think what's really interesting, right, is career fire service is wonderful. I've never had the opportunity to be a career fireman. I've had opportunity. I never capitalized on those opportunities and took advantage of that. And so not really getting that aspect of it, but I can understand it.
Sure.
It had to be hard for you to walk away from that.
Oh, it was extremely difficult. That was the dream. That was the dream, when I was 14 years old, it's like, okay, I'm going to become a fireman.
I want to do
That's
that.
what I'm going to do.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, and I remember, the last day I left was rough. I remember, leaving the firehouse on the last day and almost on the brink of tears thinking, oh my gosh, I made a really rough choice here. But then, like I said, within the first couple weeks of being here, I kind of got the same feeling when you teach somebody, or even, when you teach somebody and watch them struggle for a little bit, maybe, pulling a hand line took you 4 or 5 times to get down right, or forcing a door took a little while. And then you watch the satisfaction, especially on somebody who's, 15, 16 years old, on their faces, and get to teach them that and pass that knowledge on to them. It's a different type of fulfillment, but it's definitely, it's definitely something that, I love.
Were you looking for that? So
no,
the reason why I asked,
sure,
right, is like I'm
absolutely.
trying to play this over in my head, and I know you kind of we kind of already had this conversation off camera,
sure.
and I'm just wrapping my head around it. But
for sure,
when you left the firehouse, that was what you wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
But there had to be something that drew you to the potential of this, right?
Yeah, I would say that largely because I was one of these students. You know what I mean? I think I can speak to that differently. I went through. That's actually a nice way to connect with them too. Is I took the same
100%.
test. I took the same test that you guys took.
Sat in your seat.
I sat in your seat. Yeah, exactly. So that's definitely been a big help. But yeah, I think had I not gone through this type of program, I probably wouldn't have thought twice. I never would have taken the job. But it meant so much to me. I think it shaped who I was so much being in the tech school that I thought that, that's a job I'm going to take.
Giving back to it.
For sure, 100%. Yeah.
It did a lot for you then, this program.
Oh yeah, for sure. It really did. I was not the best student prior to getting into the tech school. I was a troublemaker. I didn't really like my classes and stuff. But then I got into a class that's what I wanted to learn. That's what I wanted to do. And the nice part too is I also met people that were like me and that had common goals. Yeah. So I didn't really, once I got into the tech school, I didn't hang out with a lot of people from my home school. All my buddies and stuff like that were from the tech school. And they were all members of firehouses.
I think it's such a powerful conversation because I think we put traditional schooling on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And not every kid, so many kids get lost in the traditional approach because it's just not for them. Mm-hmm. And for you to say that it's not that you weren't a good student. You weren't a good student at the traditional model of what high school was giving you.
Yes.
But as soon as you got into a technical school that gave you what you were looking for, I'm sure you did very well.
For sure. The country's definitely coming around to 100%. that. We spent too long just forcing college down people's throats, frankly. They didn't need it, didn't want it, or
I wouldn't
degrees.
Go back. I wouldn't do it again.
Don't blame me one bit. I'm the same way myself.
I went to a 4-year university, got a bachelor's degree. If I were to do it over, I probably would not go to college.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that, now that we're realizing that and realizing the full potential that these types of schools and programs have to offer, you're hopefully going to ultimately make for somebody who's going to have a happier life, who doesn't find themselves in a job that they don't want to be in because they went and got a degree that they didn't need, Sorry about that.
No, this
we're in a
legit.
school. We're in a school.
The first time we're sitting in the school, but the first time I heard that go up, I thought we were rolling out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I thought we were hitting the streets with the Delaware County Technical High School Engine Company.
Oh yeah, you should hear when a box drops close to here. All the kids, man, they do not let's go. We have a fire engine. So that's always funny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is something that's really important to recognize, and that's probably this struggle you had of like, hey, I'm a career fireman now, but man, this opportunity's here, and this is a program that did so much for me, put you on the path to get to that career, and then, hey, I might be able to make a bigger impact.
For sure.
You can be...
It is, 100% is.
You mentioned the word fulfillment, and I wrote it down on my pad, and I think fulfillment is a word that we don't talk about enough for an individual. And I think that a lot of people struggle with that today more than ever, is finding their own fulfillment within life, right? Because ultimately you have to be happy. And without fulfillment, without working in a career or a job or be in a relationship that you're not fulfilled with, man, that sets you up for bad times.
Oh yeah. It doesn't matter how much money you make. If you're not feeling fulfilled in what you do, it's not, you're not gonna be happy at it. You're not gonna be happy doing it.
So I can only imagine then, with your background here and your passion for it, passionate enough to come back to it.
Sure.
You had other guys that were in your position before you got here. Mm-hmm. And the program probably looked a little bit different.
Very different.
Okay.
Yeah. The first year was tough. I had come in, I came in post career fire academy, very militant structure.
Sure.
Thinking that I was going to run this program just like that. And my very first year, it certainly backfired. I think I came out off a little too militant frankly for no good reason. The kids that were plenty good and kids that, wanted to do the job, but that was just kind of like, this is how I learned, this is how you're going to learn. And that doesn't make it right. And definitely, generations of kids change. So, once I kind of took a step back and realized, that maybe we don't need to take everything so seriously, because I think they get that a lot from adults. Everything is serious. Everything is serious. Well, no, everything is not serious. The fire service, we joke around, we, things like that. And I think once that kind of happened, I was able to connect with them on a better level. And since then, the relationship I've had with the kids has been great,
Yes.
I say kids, they're adults. That's something I have to remind myself to.
No, I think it's yes, right? But you treat kids, adults, whatever you want to call them, there's a level of respect and this mutual gratitude for one another too, because they have to see your passion that goes into this.
Yeah, and the other thing that's hugely helps, I'm still a volunteer in the area, and it's not uncommon to see them on the fire ground either, which is always that goes cool. That goes a long way. Yeah, and that cool part now that I've been doing it for a few years is every fire ground's like a big reunion. Afterwards when you're packing hose, you get to see a couple of your old students and things like that. That
what does that feel like?
Oh, it's wild. I mean, especially, I had the pleasure of being on a mutual aid fire where one of my students was, the first time on the nozzle, put the fire out, the whole 9 yards. And I remember their face, reminded me of what it was like the first time I got to do that. Yeah. And I remember, you give yourself a little credit, I think I taught him some of those skills, but just watching the joy, because just like you said, the fulfillment's the key part of that. I don't think you can get any more fulfilled than that moment. It makes you realize, I guess, the seriousness, and I guess the importance that this position carries.
100%. Wow. So if we break that down a little,
absolutely.
Coming back here and finding that fulfillment in teaching and educating in a program that you wanted, that did so much for you, you then want to add to the program. You want to make the program better and push it further.
So we can talk, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And then to see in 5 years now, right? This is your 5th year. So you've had 5 years of graduates.
Yes.
So there's 100 kids.
Yeah.
Adults. Possibly working on fire grounds.
Yeah.
And
not police cars and ambulances
that could bring a lot back to the same roots that you got here.
The alumni network we have is huge. Awesome. And that's been, very few of them become strangers. I think I stay in contact with most of them, and a lot of them want to come back. Once a year we do a day in the life of a first responder event. We go to our training center, and it's ours for the day, and we kind of make it a mock city, and they go to a variety of mock calls.
I love it.
Well, yeah, a large majority of people that help us out with that are alumni, people that came through this, got what they got out of it, but want to give back. And I think that says a lot, too, about the caliber of person that comes here and wants to do it. It's certainly not for selfish reasons. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to come back and do it,
I look at, we talk about what this program did for you. You talk about what it does for your kids, right? It's so much more, and I know I said it already, but I'm just bringing that back. The reason why they're coming back, the reason why the alumni are coming back to this program is because it's done so much for them.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're instrumental in that.
Oh,
and
I know,
and listen, I know, every guy, I'm humble, humble. I get that, but you really are making, there's a lot of people that teach and instruct, and they make an impact where they are. Some instructors just go through the paces and could give two craps. If
we've all had those teachers
100%,
before,
right? Yeah. What I watched was we walked into the classroom. You and I were chit-chatting. We walked in. One of your students came in and goes, "Hey, do you want so-and-so to take attendance, or are you coming in?"
Yeah.
Right? So we walked in, and I got to watch you just talk with the students, and there was this level of mutual respect. And
I treat them just like I would anybody else.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a very long way to watch their reactions to you and how they act. And I think that you're teaching them so much by that.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that I'm a person too. I mess up every day just like you do and everything like that. But yeah, I find that the pedestal isn't always the best approach with them. Just because I'm older than you doesn't necessarily mean I know everything.
100%.
And they show me and teach me things too. I mean, they're more in tune with the fire service. I have a wife and kids. I'm not as active as I used to be in the volunteer world. They are. So, they oftentimes, I mean, I love when they come in, they heard of some new wild hose pack they want to do or a new way to force a door or whatever, take it and run with it because I learned stuff too, and that's great.
I always talk about the yes and no. And so often the senior guys or people higher up than the young kids, right? A lot of times these young kids don't have a voice.
Yes, that's something I'm very passionate about.
And so often administrations, command staffs, company officers, even senior guys say no. They say no all the time. Hey, can we try that new Scorpion load? Can we try that new modified Minuteman? No.
To be very frank with that, and it's my opinion, but I think if you're doing that, you're pushing people away.
100%.
Whether you know it or not.
Yes.
You need to, I think that you'd be surprised what somebody will do for your organization if you give them a little responsibility.
I love that.
A little responsibility, you'd be shocked at what they do. And I think, that's huge. My question to somebody who says no is, well, why?
Yes.
Why? Why say no? Is it a power trip kind of deal? What are you hurting?
So there's a lot to that, and a lot of it has to do with power trip and ego, right?
Yeah.
Or it's laziness.
Okay, that's a good point.
We've always done it that way.
Yeah.
There's no reason to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Even if it's better, we're fine the way we are.
Yeah.
Or when you have a younger kid, you have kids here that are going through this program 5 days a week during their high school, junior and senior year. I can tell you that probably some of these kids in their firehouses can run circles around the 10-year guy that's in the same firehouse.
Yes.
So they become a threat.
That's something I haven't thought of, but
they
for
are.
Sure.
So the 10-year guy that's very comfortable in his position in that firehouse becomes threatened by an 18-year-old gun-ho kid that's living this life in a mock firehouse and learning this every day, stretching lines, learning theory, wearing their SCBA and becoming very proficient at it. And then there's guys that aren't, and they have a lot more experience, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
Those 18-year-old kids are a threat to them.
That's a good point.
And that is where we need to do a better job. That's where our existing members need to not say no. We need to say yes, embrace it, and believe that an 18-year-old kid has something to teach you. You're their instructor, and you said you'll sit back and listen.
1,000%. Those are the best. That's the best lessons. And when they can teach each other, that's great. But the one thing I wanted to say to your point is that we can't afford this. This is not the fire service of 20, 30, 40 years ago. Not that I was in the fire service 40 years ago, but what I've heard, is that, I think where we could kind of afford to let candidates slip through the cracks because we had a boatload of people wanting this job. That's not the case anymore. You can't afford to do that anymore. If you want your organization to continue in the future after you're gone, you can't afford to kind of blow people off, maybe not give them the responsibility they deserve and things like that. You need to let them be a part of your organization, give them the responsibility they want, listen to their opinions, especially in the volunteer world, because volunteerism's dying, and asking a kid to come give up free time is not really something that a lot of them are doing anymore. So I do think that even though they're that 14-year-old, and even though that your opinion wasn't heard when you were that age, it's different time now. I think
it is a different time.
For sure. And a lot of times their opinions are constructive, are relevant, and are oftentimes helpful.
And frankly, say yes, and then let them try it.
Yeah.
And then have them explain it to you, and whether it works or doesn't work, right? One thing, if it works, great. We found a better way, an easier way, a more proficient way. Great, we win. The public wins. Or it doesn't work. Hey, man, gave you the opportunity, brother, but you fell flat, man.
Absolutely.
And then it's this learning experience for them. I think that's really important. I talked real quick when I spoke in front of the class, and I just want to get your take on this too. We talked about the process.
Yeah.
And how important the process is. And I said,
overnight.
don't speed up your career because you feel like you need to be the biggest badass on the fire ground at 20 years old. Enjoy the career. Give it the 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year benchmarks and learn the process.
Yeah.
And enjoy the process.
Let yourself be vulnerable. I say this a lot. Let yourself be vulnerable and let yourself make mistakes. The vulnerability is the hardest part, I think, especially in this business, because I think it's a lot of I'm a man's man kind of guy. I guess, I can just speak to a lot of the older guys I meet, they're not very touchy-feely kind of people, right? But when you mess up, a lot of times I think that those kind of people turn to excuses rather than just saying, no, I made a mistake. I thought this was the incorrect way to do it, so I did it this way, and it wasn't the right thing, So being vulnerable, opening yourself up to criticism, and admitting you made a mistake is something that I drive down these guys' throats, because I think it lacks in the fire service in a lot of places.
Yeah, you got to own it. And,
you do. There's no question.
The only way you're going to learn is if you own your mistakes and then learn from them, right?
Yep, 100%.
I wrote down the word confidence, right, when you were talking about that. And I think that I think a program like this really instills confidence into the individual.
Oh yeah.
I find, a lot of times, and this is just fact, like a lot of times in our volunteer firehouses, we're not getting the high school quarterback coming through the door to volunteer.
Sure.
We're finding we have kids that are looking for community, looking for direction, looking for something that they're missing, right?
You hit the nail on the head with community. And this was something I said I was going to bring up. And
Yeah.
I want to touch on it for sure is that, one thing I would like to mention, at least to those, because I know junior fire programs exist across the country, is just think about what their home life is, because it may not always be what you think it is.
100%.
You may be the one adult that listens to them that day.
Yep.
You may be that one adult, frankly, that listens to them in their whole life. You don't know how big of a role you play. Not everybody may have had it as good as you did growing up. Like I see with these students, they come from all walks of life.
Yes.
Those are huge shoes to fill. You may effectively be the parent as that, lieutenant at the firehouse or even that senior firefighter to those junior members. So those are big shoes to fill. So it's your job, in addition to teaching them the tricks of the trade, is to guide them, help them be a successful adult.
Some of the most fun I've had in learning on the podcast is when guys come on the show and they talk to me about how they never did laundry until they they lived in a firehouse.
Yeah.
They never made coffee before. They didn't know how to cook, right? These life skills. But you're so right. I educate my kids. My two youngest are 15 and 16. And I said, you can't judge anyone. You can't judge your best friend. You can't judge anyone in your school, regardless of how they dress, what they look like, who they are, how they act out. I said, because you don't know what they're dealing with.
It's that simple.
And the fire service is one of those places where people are looking typically for direction.
Yeah.
A lot of kids come to the fire service, the neighborhood firehouse. Why in communities do kids buff at the firehouse? They're looking for something. Mm-hmm. It's not just the excitement and the red flashy truck. It's watching the camaraderie, the brotherhood and sisterhood that's occurring. Yes. The fact that these guys are willing to step down off the fire truck, get down on one knee and talk to them.
Yeah.
That is so impactful to kids that probably are looking for something more in their own life. And we need to embrace that. And I think programs like this really then go back to my talking point of confidence. Yeah. Instills a level of confidence in them that maybe they didn't have when they walked through the door. But after a 2-year program being here, it instills a lot more confidence into them.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And then, these programs, the one thing I wanted to mention, they do exist. Some places they exist, some places they don't, but they vary wildly state by state, right? So that was one of the things that I wanted to kind of come on here.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, break it down.
If you don't mind.
No,
yeah,
100%.
So,
because I want to educate people about this type of program.
Yeah, I think
what you're doing here.
I think it'd be very good for people to hear and hopefully gain some, support for this. Why,
yes.
I can just speak for here, specifically in Pennsylvania, there's however many counties in the Commonwealth, and every one of these counties, for the most part, has a program like this, but they vary wildly, I would say, in either their funding, who the teacher is, what type of certifications they offer and stuff like that. And a lot of it is because it's up to the individual school to kind of take the program and make it what it is. There's really not a whole lot of support given to the school.
Right.
Given even to the individual teacher. When I walked on here, they said, okay, here's a list of what you have to teach, kind of good luck, and they trust that you're the industry professional that can deliver the material,
right?
Which to an extent is true, but there's a lot that goes into this. So I think one of the things that would benefit, I would assume that at least the state of Pennsylvania, but I would suspicious to say the rest of the country, would be some type of uniform governing body or some type of uniform curriculum for high school fire programs. They do exist in some states, I know, but they certainly don't exist everywhere else. And also maybe some type of resource to put these programs in place where they don't exist. Because I think that this is something that every state, every municipality, frankly, given the current recruitment crisis that we're in, should be taking a good hard look at.
100%.
Because this is the pipeline. And this is going to be the way to get your candidates in the door, because people just aren't getting into this business like they used to. So I think that, for all the good that these programs do, there is some support they need, One of the other issues that we constantly run into is battling community colleges for funding. The State Fire Academy doesn't necessarily, at least this is my perception, view us very differently than other community colleges. This is high schoolers. There is a difference. They do learn differently. They do, they learn, act differently, tons of different things. So I think that some type of extra resource, maybe some type of governing body or some type of nationwide, frankly, support system for this would be a very good idea to help develop some consistency.
This episode's brought to you by Fast Rescue Solutions. Fast Rescue Solutions was created with the mission to develop products and training that surpass currently accepted industry standards and that meet the operational challenges of the real world. Their mission is, always has been, and it always will be to revolutionize rescue and save lives. Fulfilling both the mission and the vision, the Fastboard is a disruptive technology in rescue, invented by 28-year Philadelphia firefighter Eric Allen, who has over 20 years in the Philadelphia Fire Department Special Operations Unit. Nationally, the average time for rescuing a downed firefighter is 15 to 20 minutes using 5 or more members. The Fastboard has the ability to reduce that time to 5 minutes or less using only 2 to 3 members, which is 500 times faster than the national average. Originally designed to get a firefighter down and out of a basement, the Fastboard has been proven effective in nearly every rescue situation. RIT, confined space, trench and ice water rescue, hazmat, mass casualty, and the list goes on and on. Its simplicity and versatility make it a game changer. I've been calling it a game changer for the last 5 years, and it truly is changing the way firefighter removal and rescue and civilian rescue is being done. Come find them at FDIC. They'll be at booth 13120 in the Capitol Corridor. Also this year, it's known as Firefighter Road. There's a ton of firefighter-owned businesses out in that Capitol Corridor. That's where you want to be, supporting our own. Stop in and see the crew from the Fast Rescue Solutions for live demos and meet the tribe. Their tribe, there's nothing better than that. This is tried and true brothers and sisters that are into the game, and they are making the job better. Join them Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of FDIC week from 3 to 5 in the main corridor, and you can have a cold one with them for happy hour. Come down, meet the crew, let them know who you are, and let them show you why they're changing the game. Fast Rescue Solutions, changing the game in the way we're protecting our own and the civilians we're sworn to protect. Check them out.
And I think so that was one thing I made sure when I knew, I can't thank you enough for coming over here.
This is awesome.
The one thing for sure, I wanted to make sure that I got out and wanted to make sure people heard. And, I would love, to hear people's opinions on that.
Do you know other people that teach or instruct in programs like this?
Sure, I do, actually.
Okay.
And that's actually the cool part. I've been in touch with plenty of other people in Pennsylvania, and I've seen some programs where the school has the funding that they need, and the program is great.
So is it county
Generally.
administration run, right? Or is it state run?
I guess to break that down a little bit more. So the state Department of Education is who hands us we call it our task list. That is a list of every
state.
It's a state Department of Education.
Here's the minimums we have, right? The
Correct.
curriculum,
Yes.
what has to be taught,
Yes.
all that stuff.
And it's not even a curriculum. It's almost a list of learning objectives. It's just
Really?
literally it said, demonstrate use of portable fire extinguishers. Okay.
Bullet points.
Yeah, demonstrate understanding of fire behavior. It's like, well, okay, but if I'm a brand new teacher, how am I going to get from A to B? It's just like, here's what they're supposed to learn. This is kind of how you're supposed to develop
Got it.
it. And the schools that have that support system are great. And I luck out. I have excellent bosses and excellent people that help me. Because the thing you have to understand is in the technical school realm is these aren't people that went to school to be teachers. You had the person that was a carpenter, the person that was a firefighter, whatever. So getting into this, I think that having some type of support system for that is huge.
Yeah.
Because right now they send you to a few college classes, which frankly are not very helpful.
Well, you're tradespeople who then have to get an education degree so you can teach.
Well, and it turns people away from the business as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I wonder, so the Delaware school that we're in, right? Delaware County, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's enrollment look like here?
For our students specifically or the whole school?
Whole school. Is there an upswing?
Oh, 100%, which is great.
So that's a fun conversation.
Yeah, for sure it is. For sure it is. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to think of the most diplomatic way to say this, but colleges have been offering things that weren't always beneficial for students.
I get
think
it.
Degrees that weren't always beneficial
You
for
and
students.
I hit on that before.
And I think the cat's out of the bag. And I think that students now are realizing, I could make just as much money being a carpenter. I can make just as, or more, frankly, yes, even better, or more.
And have more opportunity.
Have more opportunity, 100%, be more fulfilled, and that brings them here too, which is, great. And also, not everybody's meant to sit behind a desk. Not everybody's
right.
meant to, God, it drives me crazy. I tell people all the time, the days I'm most tired are when I'm sitting in there putting in grades. I'm more tired doing that than a day of teaching.
Well, that's what you said.
Getting out and
This
getting about.
when you
Yeah.
found this program over traditional
Yeah.
high school, you excelled.
For sure. Yeah,
and
I
it,
think
it changed your path. It changed your course. But if you got stuck sitting in a traditional high school and didn't have an opportunity to come to a program like this, imagine where you'd be today.
I have no idea. I would hate to. I hate
You
to
know what I'm
imagine
saying?
that, but yeah, no.
Yeah, you'd be
100%.
working a 9 to 5, working
Yeah.
for paychecks or
Miserable.
somebody, sitting behind a desk in a cubicle or something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
being miserable.
yeah, I can't stress that enough. And I think programs like this in technical schools, I think there is an upswing. And I think
Oh, yeah.
I agree with you 100% in that regard. And it brings so much value to the table because it's not just the trade they're learning, but it's how a trade is taught differently than algebra class.
Yes.
There's a whole different way of consuming the knowledge, and the respect and physicalness of it is a different way to learn.
Well, and to touch on that, there the ways that I would say we do it differently. At least here for our program, we've built a pretty expansive co-op network. What some people I guess would call like work release. So we've had a great support from all different organizations in our county. But some of the places, like our students can get out of class to go ride on an ambulance for 8 hours in a day. We were recently at our medical examiner's office. The students got to sit in on autopsies thanks to our awesome medical examiner. I know that's not a fire-related thing.
No, but I get it. It's
But
part of the program.
For our EMT students, that's
Absolutely.
amazing. The other place that I have students doing clinicals right now are at our dispatch center, our 911 center. So that's a whole nother public safety career as well. So yeah, talking about like the more non-traditional route, and even to speak to our other programs, you have students that if it's their second year here and they're proficient, they're out building houses with other contractors, or they're out, working in a mechanic shop fixing cars, or so on and so forth. So I think that talking about non-traditional learning environments, that's huge because that's going to give you things you're just not going to get in a classroom. And the one thing that I would challenge local fire departments to do, if you have a school like this in your area, is consider developing some type of program like that.
Yeah.
It takes nothing from you to allow them to come to your station for 8 hours a day. The schools cover the insurance, frankly. They're all set up. We're all set up to do co-op. And that alone, getting them out of school, being able to show them what to do, I think can go a long way in getting candidates in your door.
100%. I mean, I did a podcast not too long ago with Chris Ussery out of Virginia Beach, and she's in the training division for a 3-year stint, and part of that is the cadet program that they run. And it's a really good podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I would suggest you listen to it because she talks about her students there, and it's just like 2 or 3 times a month, but it's like 14 to 18-year-olds. But the intent of the program, one, was to give kids an outlet to learn about the emergency services, but 2, they're creating an early on pipeline of figuring out who's the best for their jobs. So that when they go to hire, they already have these kids in the pipeline. These kids know all about their fire department. They know, and the fire department knows all about these kids. And they're like, this girl would be a great candidate. We need to do everything we can to gobble them up.
I watch that happen right now. I mean, we have a pretty expansive network with the local EMS agencies, but a lot of them know the students' first name basis. Hey, and I get it's not uncommon for me to get an email. Hey, I like that Mike kid. He's what we're looking for, and then that person can go out and get a job because you meet them. They're part of the process of growing that student too. So you can also kind of groom them to become the firefighter you want or the EMT you want, and give them, this is how we do things at our department that might be different from yours, and so on and so forth. So I think that that's hugely beneficial. I think if you're a fire department that's not doing that, you're missing out on a huge recruitment opportunity.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
And I'm just like trying to wrap my head around it, like,
sure. I mean,
and so on. But what I think what we need to do is to circle back just to what you were talking about, like whether it's a registry of understanding where these programs are, because I think a lot of places don't know.
A good point. So when we created a Facebook page, it was just my idea to try to promote the program a little more. That's really when we started getting support from our local fire and EMS departments, everybody who could see what the EPS program at Delaware County Tech Schools is doing. And I think that in a lot of places, it's a local fire company.
That's fantastic. If you
I
guys
don't know what they got.
if you couldn't pick it up on the podcast, I'm sitting here and all of a sudden I'm looking at the garage
They're
door
right up the
because
street.
there's a fire siren going off. It's like old school. This is
Yeah.
what I love, man.
Yeah.
Like how many
Yeah.
towns have fire sirens left?
I
love
know.
that.
I know. Yeah, it's great.
Is it 12 o'clock or is no?
Nope.
Oh, there it goes again.
They're going, it'll spin up and spin down. Yeah. No,
So
I'm
all
sure
your
they got
kids
some-
are like looking out the glass right now?
Oh yeah, no. There's a. So we're in Delaware County. There's a site called Delco Dispatch. So they already know what they're going for. They'll pull out their phone. Oh, they got a fire alarm. Oh, they got a building fire. And like I said, when it's a building fire, they're always chomping at the bit to go.
Yeah.
I tell them if it's here, no problem.
Field
But
trip,
that's about
guys.
it.
Field
Yeah,
trip.
right.
Everybody in the
That would be
ambulance
cool.
outside.
That would be cool, yeah.
Right?
But the local fire departments, have been extremely supportive for that. And part of the thing has been the social media. But I think in a lot of places, these programs are like the best kept secret. And it's a shame. It shouldn't be that way. And And to be frank, at least, that falls a lot on me as the instructor to promote the program, which is a lot in addition to teaching it. So I think that on the flip side, that maybe some of the technical schools could do a better job of promoting programs. But on the other side, the fire and police and EMS departments, it's a very simple phone call to call and ask if you have one of those programs and ask how you can help.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm just thinking, I don't know of a program like this near me.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
I don't think New Jersey, at least in northern New Jersey, I don't know. There's a few technical high schools, but they do not offer emergency services.
Really? Yeah.
So that's why, when I asked you early on in this episode about where the foundation came from, it had to take some really smart people to figure out that it's a technical job. And so it fits right under the umbrella of a technical high school. Why aren't we offering that type of approach? So it took some people with some foresight to really put together a program like
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, and it's just, like I said, it's just grown and morphed over the years. So, your other option, if you're in a department like that where I don't have one of these programs around me, go to the school. Pitch it to them. Yeah. We create new programs. We have one of our newer programs is biomedical engineering. I don't understand half of what they do.
Yeah.
It's lab sciences.
Me and you both, yeah.
But there's a very non-traditional type program. So it seems like now is your time to kind of use that to its fullest extent because career and technical education is on the uptick.
Yeah.
Schools, I would say, I would imagine in most places across the country are looking to open programs, fill seats and stuff like that. And, if it's a program that is going to have enrollment, I would think most schools would be willing to tackle that project.
For sure.
And it could be a joint venture. There's a lot of departments that do that, a joint venture between the department and the school itself.
Yeah, collaboration always makes things better in my world, right?
Yeah.
When I think
it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and then looking at that, you think about how many fire departments are going through the transitional efforts right now. We were just talking about merging districts.
I'm in a department right now. We're merging 3 into 1 as we speak.
We're having issues where I am, so it's a lot of conversation about what are our options, how do we weigh our options, and then where do we want to go. There's a lot of programs that have already bunking programs. So fire departments recognize that we need to get crafty in our approach.
And this is just another one and then another tool in that toolbox.
Embrace this generation and then give them the tools they need. Talk to me about this generation.
Yeah, you saw me light up. That's definitely something I'm passionate about. Yeah, I can't stand, I hear it a lot from people, about the problems that the generation that comes after them has, Gen Z this, Gen Z that. Yeah. Listen, I see about 50 of them a year, but, all of them are hardworking. All of them want to be here, and all of them got into this for the right reasons. The problems that I see, frankly, are some of the ones that go back to their firehouses and can get a tainted view of things.
No.
You'd be, right?
Being told no.
Yeah, you'd be shocked. Well, and also you'd just be shocked at how much, I think a lot of the more senior guys, you'd be shocked at how much they may look up to you and you may not realize it. So what you say, they will take as gospel, right? So if it's, it's just a fire alarm, I'm not going to put my air pack on. Well, they're going to listen to you, and they're probably going to listen to you over me because you're a member of their firehouse.
I agree with you.
You know as well as I do that's not the best decision to be making, right? For the citizen, who may have their house on fire when it's that fire alarm. So I think that, I guess to try to circle back to that is that, the Gen Z people that I see now are in it for the right reasons, hard workers. There seems to be less of them getting into the business, but the ones that are getting into the business are as good as ever, in my opinion.
I think so. Who are we to judge?
Well, yeah.
Who are we to say differently? Because here's the thing, right? It takes work. The one thing that's lacking in all firehouses is work, right? We're struggling to dedicate enough time to the volunteer firehouse, right? Or career guys are not into it as much as they used to be. Their side job's more important. They're arguing with their third wife, all those things, right?
Yeah.
No, that's facts.
Oh, no,
right?
that's 100%.
And so, they're kind of disconnected. And then to have a young, excited group in your firehouse that's ready to go and you don't share the same excitement or desire to work on their behalf to make them good, well, then what are you going to do? You're going to squash their spirit, right? You're going to take away their ability to want to be better and do more.
And they'll leave too, because that's the other thing that what's going on now is that there's been a massive flip. I remember when I applied to when I was applying to my career departments, it was 1,000 people testing for a 25-spot academy. A lot. That big competition. That's starting to dwindle. The pendulum's going the other way.
100%.
Where the employers don't necessarily have the power. It's the candidates that do because the vacancies are there. Mm-hmm. Before, the vacancies were hard to come by because people stayed in those jobs. But due to the recruitment crisis or what have you now, people have the ability to hop ship very quickly to another department. And so that should be a massive threat to you as an organization of, well, what am I doing to retain these young people? How am I keeping them engaged and excited? Because if you're not, they'll become bitter for a short period of time, but they'll just leave eventually.
Because they have options.
They have options.
People have more options now than ever.
Yes.
And you can't, and the Gen Z knows that.
Yeah.
They know they have options because it's in their hand. Here's my option right here. I can learn about this fire department. Look how great this fire department looks at. Look, one of the kids today mentioned Christiana to me.
They're doing a great job.
Right?
Great department.
And
we're close to them, and I can't.
But my point is, right, is like they mentioned a department by name.
Yes. Who's doing it right? Yeah.
That speaks volumes, right? Because where's that kid? That kid's going to be in some dead-end engine company with some crusty old guys that don't want to embrace his excitement and vigor. And that kid's going to be like, you know what? I don't need you guys.
We'll drive 30 minutes down the road.
I could go right down the road, go to a lot more fires, and hang out with guys that make me feel better. That's where you want to be.
Yep. And it takes a good. We just challenge the department to take a good long look, right, at their department and what their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities are, and what the threats are for their organization. Because, at least when I've done it before, I've done it for this program. It takes you all about 5 or 10 minutes with a couple people to realize what some of your big glaring problems are, and that's oftentimes one of them.
Are you willing to look at it, though?
Well, that's huge, yeah. Right?
Are you willing to have that conversation? Because I think most places know what their problems are.
Yeah.
They choose not to address it.
Yeah, well, and that's a shame then. Then you're complicit.
100%.
You know what I mean? And that's the, it's one thing to be said if somebody's not identifying the problem, but if you've identified the problem and don't want to change it, well, then frankly, it's on you.
So do you talk about this with them?
Oh, for sure. And we have, like I said, we have all different departments in this county, from all different, socioeconomic areas and stuff like that. And, there'll be an idea or a trend or something that'll sweep along them. And, some of them will take it back to the departments who will embrace it quickly and some won't. And, and there's nothing worse. There's nothing that, I hate hearing more is that, like you'd have a 16 or 17-year-old student that's coming to me and complaining about a problem in their department. And I know they're right.
Yeah.
It's not the 40-year-old dude that's right. What you're saying to me makes sense. You're correct.
Yeah.
And that's a shame, and what do I say to somebody like that as well? Because all they're pouring their heart and soul into this place because they have the time and ability to. These aren't people that have jobs or kids yet. The firehouse is life. So I think that, if they're taking the time to say that, to bring that stuff to your department's attention, you should at least listen.
You can only be discouraged so much
and then
before you either bounce or you shut them down. I mean, how many people walk away from the fire service daily because they weren't treated the way they should have been treated, right?
For sure.
Yeah. You are truly shaping and crafting. You got 5 years in. You probably got 100 kids on the street that are in all different positions and jobs. Some went into the emergency services, some didn't. Super rewarding for you.
Absolutely. It's been great. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
What's it feel like? I mean, no, I mean that. No, like I like to ask my guests on the podcast, like, because a lot of people, I try to talk to people that I believe in my dealings with them that they're making a difference, or they have an incredible story, or there's something about them that I think brings tremendous value to the fire service, right? That's the whole intent of this. And so for me, I often ask people, like, what's that 30,000 sky-high view when you look down? Like, what does that look like for you? I mean, you left the job you thought was going to be your career to come here for fulfillment and happiness. 5 years in, you're smiling, you're laughing. We've had an incredible morning together.
Great.
Like, and I see the interaction between you and the kids. You get to see these kids on the fire ground. You get to see them progress through their careers. You get to see them get hired.
I think
you're really making an impact, brother.
Yeah, I think the best thing I could say, it took me a minute to try to figure out the words for that, but what I would say is a win for them is a win for me.
Love it.
That makes sense.
I love it.
That's validation for everything you put into them, right? So, they get into that college that they were applying to. That's a win for me. They become a police officer or firefighter. That's also a win for me. It's a win for them more so, but I hopefully played a part in that. So that definitely makes me feel good, for sure.
That's cool, man. Yeah. So what's the future look like for you? The program? I mean, I think you're just getting started.
I would agree. So some of the things we're looking to add in the future, so like I said, Pennsylvania has 4 modules in their Fire One curriculum, with the final module being interior firefighter. The state is making some changes to try to combat the decreasing number of volunteers, one of them being allowing live fire training at the age of 17, as long as it's a part of the Firefighter One program. So that would be the next step, I think, would be to be trying to add that. My ultimate goal for this program would be to graduate candidates that are certified EMTs and with the Firefighter One certification as well. I think for 2 years here, you do a fire year, an EMS year, and graduate with those certifications, I think would make a pretty well-rounded candidate, especially for today's fire service.
Do you talk to any continuing education places? So like colleges, community colleges, anything
we do.
like that?
That's actually, okay. Well, that's a whole nother thing that you bring up.
Well,
So,
let's talk about it because
No,
I
it's
think
great.
that's
I'm glad
just,
you mentioned it.
I think that's just the next step in the process.
Yeah.
I mean, you're molding and shaping 16 to 18-year-olds, and you're helping them along in deciding if this is something they want to do as maybe a career or a state volunteer or whatever that looks like. There's obviously the next step.
We have a lot of articulation agreements with local colleges where they'll actually give the students, some places up to 12 college credits for just attending and graduating from this program.
That's cool.
Yeah. Our local community college is one of them, but then there's also state schools and things like that. So having these articulation agreements as well can create different graduation pathways. I'll have a student that'll come through and say, I want to get a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and then become a police officer. Okay, cool. Well, here's a list of schools that will offer you college credits for having attended this program and completed it. And that definitely can help narrow down and help, them
Absolutely.
figure out the graduate,
Yeah.
rather than just getting hit with 100 different choices of schools. It can help them with that as well. So yeah, for the continuing education, we offer that. They can transition pretty smoothly from EMT here into paramedic with our local community college, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The fire one is a little bit more tough, but there are schools, that do offer credits for ours that, offer degrees in fire science and things like that, which is beneficial as well.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about like, that's the next logical step. And, a lot of jobs today are requiring some college behind you, right? Before you get hired, if you want to go the career paths. Some are, 30, 60 college credits and so on. So do you push your kids? I know it's a technical high school, but is there that talk about further education?
There's always the talk about it. Would I say, do I push them? Definitely not.
Wrong choice of words.
No.
But,
I get what you're saying. No. I would say that, guide them certainly. I would say that, it's not uncommon, all right, I think, to get a student that will come through and not have any idea what they're doing after this.
Yeah.
Okay. And so those are the ones that really, because if you don't latch on to them and give them that guidance that they need, they may not make much of themselves. And that's right. That's unfortunate. It's sad because, and I've seen it, we've had wins, we've had losses. I've had students that have gone on and have had unknowingly taken the harder route in life.
I get it.
So yeah, I definitely think that we bear a whole lot of responsibility in guiding them that way. And the mentors at their firehouses do the same way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm their teacher. I see them for so many hours a day, but they're going to listen to the person at their fire station before they listen to me. I've seen it.
Yes.
So that there's responsibility with that.
Tremendous responsibility. But I also think too, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit either, because I think I think your voice is very powerful to your kids.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I think that if they're in a department where their people aren't lifting them up, they know that this is a place that lifts them up.
That's a good way to put it, for sure.
And I think that is very impactful for their future and career. And in fact, these kids, like we said, typically are looking for something more. They need some fulfillment or voids filled in their life, whether it's a parent figure, some structure, scheduling, whatever it is, right? And then you offer that here. This is a home base that allows for that and treats them as an individual, not who they are. It's just what they are, what they want to be, who they want to be, right? And you respect that and give that to them. And I think that's very powerful. So if they're not getting it in their home departments, they're certainly getting it in a program like this.
Well, good. Yeah,
I can assure you with that.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
That's cool. Well, it's very exciting. So what do you need? Talk about the needs of programs like this, man. I know you beg, borrow, cheat, and steal to get.
Yeah, I do.
And I mean that in the nicest way.
No, everybody who knows me would say
but like sitting here with this, this is a cream puff to me. I would take this.
I love this.
I would take this for bagels on Sunday mornings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like your kids are learning off this equipment. They're getting this truck out. They're stretching lines. They're packing up. You treat them
for sure
like they're in the program. So
absolutely.
So what does that look like for you? What do you need?
Sure. Yeah. Funding is always helpful. We talked already about that. I think more of a singular governing body, but in that would be one thing I would say that I think we need. But on the other term, funding is always nice to have. The more funding we have, really the more we can do. That's probably one of our biggest limiting factors. You know what I mean? I'm lucky enough with the people that I have, that are in charge of me here are, as long as we can make it work funding wise, they'll let us have it. So I guess what I'm trying to say in that is that you could trying to
you're fine.
say it.
No,
is that I think that, the programs are only limited by the amount of money that's coming in the door. I guess that's probably the best way I can say it. So, you know, things like newer turnout gear are always nice. You know, we burn through, you know, air packs. There's a good example.
Yeah.
Getting 25 students air packs was an extremely difficult
I
task.
can't even imagine.
That's a fortune.
Yeah.
It's a fortune. So something like that as well. So maybe something, you know, hopefully maybe there's some people listening, you know, in the manufacturing industry that could maybe find a route to help out with these things.
100%.
You know what I mean? You know, you have to buy fire hose for the program. You have to buy, you know, whether it's, you know, with EMS, you know, mannequins, you know, we have an SCBA fill station that we got with a grant, but, you know, I wouldn't have been able to afford that any other way. So I think that, yeah, one of the things that could be helpful too is funding. And maybe that's something that that other departments could look at as well, and helping these programs become more successful.
Yeah, I mean,
guiding them in
because
that route.
you know that, you know, classes and courses like this are not getting the top tier funding that other programs get.
Certainly. Well, and that's the thing. We're constantly battling for our community
That's
college, which is there's a lot of people trying to do the same thing.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
There's only so much to go around, right?
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
yeah, and there's a lot of people trying to combat the volunteer problem, but it's like, okay, well, that means that everybody's going to get a smaller chunk of that pie,
Right.
So I think that, you know, maybe some
Organized
working together.
approach.
We're fortunate. I can't say enough with our community college. You know, they work pretty well with us, but I know places where they're in, you know, dead set competition, to be frank, and that's not good.
No.
You know, so help each other out. You know, you guys have a similar goal.
Yeah.
You know, or your community training center. That's another one. You know, I have a great relationship with our emergency services training center as well. So, you know, and what's good for them is good for us. We've actually been able to trade equipment and you know, help each other out. I've donated stuff to them. They've helped us. You know, I help instruct there. They can come and help instruct here. So, you know, a very good working relationship with agencies like that has been helpful too.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, and that's, I think, you know, to kind of sum it up a little bit, that's what it takes. It's a partnership. It's a collaboration, right?
It's not going to take one person. It's going to be a lot more than that.
It's not, but it takes one person. There's always the tip of the iceberg, right? And that's you, man. I mean, you know, watching your hustle and understanding, talking to people that know you in the program and hearing your roots that came up through the program, and now you're back to put your stamp on it and to push the project forward. Brother, well done, man.
Thank you
really,
so much.
I mean,
I
what
really
a
appreciate it,
what
man.
a great day
Thank
today.
you so
like,
much.
This has been a lot of fun.
I really appreciate you coming down. Thank you so much.
100%. And if we can influence in any way to get the conversation
Yes.
going, for, you know, if you're watching or listening, go ahead.
One thing I would like.
Yeah,
yes,
please. Talk.
Follow us on Facebook at DCTS EPS. If you're anybody who has a question about one of these types of programs,
more
that
time.
our
What is
page.
it?
Sure. Yes. DCTS EPS.
DCTS
EPS.
EPS.
That's for Delaware County Technical Schools Emergency and Protective Services.
And that's on Facebook?
Yes, correct. We have so the reason I'm saying that is if you're somebody who has any questions, it's something I'm very passionate about, would be more than happy to help anybody. If they wanted to know how to start a program like this, or had any questions or anything like that, you can find me on that page. I run the page, so
It's awesome.
yeah, be more than happy to help anybody else out.
Well, Keston, thank you very much for your time
Sure.
today, man. I
No,
took you
thank
away
you.
from the class, but I think
they're all right.
they're
They'll be
doing
okay.
review. It was funny. You said in the intro, "Hey guys, you know, this group, you got a documentary to watch," and I'm like, "What, Brothers in Battle? Like,
Yeah,
are we,
man.
are we
Yeah.
doing like some
Yeah.
old school video?
Yeah.
Because those are documentaries, man."
Oh yeah, for sure. No,
Like-
I mean they watch all kinds of good stuff like that for sure.
I love that,
They
man.
bring all to my attention.
Keston Weimer,
Yes, sir.
thank you, brother.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for having
Much
me
appreciated.
today and sharing your program with me. The Delaware County Technical High School Emergency and Protective Services program.
Yes, sir.
It's wild, man.
Thanks, man.
Good for you.
Appreciate it.
Keep up the great work. And if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this podcast and you have the ability, you have equipment, you have some abilities for funding, anything to promote the betterment of the job. These are young kids that are really putting in the time and energy to fall in love with the process and the job. We want to support that 100%. So, brother, thank you for sharing your
problem.
story today
Appreciate
and the school with us. And I'm so glad that I was able to be here today and
Sounds
see
good.
this.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much.
I
It was great, man.
appreciate it.
Thanks for letting me talk.
Yeah, good. Guys, thanks for tuning in to the National Fire Radio podcast. And as I always say, take the conversation back to the firehouse and talk about it, because when we're talking about the job, we make the job better. We'll see you at the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.